this?
Dead on.
Dead on. All right, let's just give it another minute. And then we'll get cracking. G'day, Adam.
Hi, Adam. How are you?
Are you guys pulling for some of the other networks?
No, it's made by people.
It's all right. You just let us know. You're good to go? So here we are, just weeks out from an election, and we have Malcolm Turnbull and Bill Shorten engaged in a deadlock over who can be more cruel, more brutal towards innocent people coming to this country seeking our protection. This has to stop. Malcolm Turnbull needs to show a little bit of courage. It takes courage to admit that you're wrong, and we need to find a better way. I call on both Malcolm Turnbull and Bill Shorten to work with the Greens, to work together to break this horrible deadlock and to find a better way towards the treatment of innocent people seeking our protection. We have the spectacle of Malcolm Turnbull suggesting that the Australian people shouldn't be misty-eyed over the fate of an Iranian refugee who has died. I just say this to Malcolm Turnbull: if you can't be misty-eyed over an innocent man, a genuine refugee, who sets himself alight because he's so desperate in front of his wife, then what sort of person are you? And that's precisely the sort of thing that a Prime Minister who has some courage and is prepared to show some leadership should be moved by. It's the sort of thing that we as a nation can't continue to accept. And then we have some genuine questions that need to be asked about the medical response towards that innocent Iranian refugee who was evacuated from Nauru and, according to medical reports, was evacuated far too late. Those brave doctors and health professionals who are now speaking out against this maltreatment, not just in this individual case, but in the cases of many others who risk prosecution for being brave. Well, we think that there has to be a better way. Those people need to be protected, and we need, as a country, a wealthy country, to recognise that offering protection, that's a sign of strength, that's not a sign of weakness. We have a policy proposal that would help increase our humanitarian intake, that would ensure that we close down those camps and spend that money in creating safer pathways so that people don't need to take that risky boat journey. I just call on the Prime Minister and the opposition leader to work with us to break this deadlock, to find a better way so that we can prevent more innocent people from dying.
As tragic as the death was, do you think it might be a point where public support now grows for the housing of these asylum seekers back in Australia?
There are many Australians right across the country, millions of them, who are horrified by what they're seeing in these prison camps and want a better way. And an incident like this is the sort of thing that most people recognise is not something that they want done in their name. I am confident that support is growing right across the nation to find a better way, and they want some leadership, some courage from both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader to work with us to find safer pathways for these people so that we can avoid these preventable deaths. And for the Prime Minister to suggest that we shouldn't be weak, we shouldn't get misty-eyed over the death of an innocent man, speaks volumes about the sort of Prime Minister he has become. We had such high hopes for Malcolm Turnbull, and yet he's continuing on with that brutality, that cruelty that Tony Abbott instilled in this debate when he was Prime Minister.
It's a simple question, but why do you think the government is so committed to offshore processing in general?
I think the answer is very, very straightforward. The government recognises that by playing on people's fears and anxieties, by making themselves look strong in the face of these innocent people seeking our protection, that there are votes in it. This is not the right moral response. It's not the right legal response. We know that these actions have now been deemed to be illegal. It's not the right fiscal response. This is an incredibly expensive response to a problem where innocent people and their families are being treated so cruelly, so inhumanely, and it's just time to find a better way.
Is that voter you're talking about? Is that the common voter? Which section of society is this appealing to?
Well, what this is it's a failure of leadership. And what we have is two old political parties playing on people's fears and anxieties, stoking their fears, rather than showing leadership, as we saw Prime Ministers before them do on this issue. We recognise that this is a difficult problem. We recognise that there is no easy answer. But we can't continue to harm innocent people, young children, in an effort to keep them safe. So I just say to Malcolm Turnbull and Bill Shorten, work with us. Let us break this deadlock. Let's recognise that we can't continue to harm innocent people. Let's show some decency. Let's settle these people here in Australia. Let them make the contribution that we know they can make. We have tomorrow a footballer for the Sydney Swans, a Sudanese refugee, who will be making his debut, showing the nation that with a little bit of dignity, with the right response, that these people want to make an enormous contribution and can make a great contribution to the nation. The next Nobel Prize winning scientist, the next governor of the country, we have the opportunity to allow these people to contribute, and that's what we need to see both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader do.
Are you realistically hopeful that something will come out of this either through Labor or the government?
Well, what will turn this debate is the growing mood within the community that what we're doing is wrong and can't be sustained. People in the community know it's morally wrong. We now learn that it's legally wrong. They know it's expensive, and they know that if we spent that money in providing safer pathways for people, we could allow these people to make an enormous contribution to the nation. I think there is a turning point. Those images of an innocent man setting himself alight because he is just so desperate, I think they will ensure that people in Australia who are decent people show the leadership that's so desperately lacking within both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader.
Senator, sorry if you asked about this before we arrived, but did you see Ferrovial's statement overnight about the takeover of Broad Spectrum? They've said that they don't see the operation of Manus and Nauru in their interests in the long term.
Yes.
Can you comment on that?
Well, what you're seeing is now individuals and corporations showing some leadership and demonstrating that this can no longer be done in the name of innocent Australians. And far too late, they should never have been engaged in the running of those detention centres. But what we're seeing is growing pressure on the government. We're seeing growing pressure on Malcolm Turnbull and Bill Shorten from the corporate sector, from decent Australians, from people within civil society, the churches, all saying this has to stop. Let's break the deadlock. And I just call on Bill Shorten and Malcolm Turnbull to work with us to find safer pathways for these innocent people.
If Ferrovial did walk away from the operation of these centres, do you think just another corporation would get in its place?
I think corporate Australia is now recognising what most of Australia know, and that is this cruelty and inhumanity can't continue. So what I call on is the Prime Minister of the country and the opposition leader to show the leadership that we're now starting to see from those individuals within the Australian community who know this policy is just simply unsustainable. I mean, for the Prime Minister to say we can't be misty-eyed about a young man who sets himself alight because he's so desperate, I mean, what sort of person has the Prime Minister become? Is his heart so hardened by the fact that he might stand to lose a few votes within the Australian community? Well, my advice to the Prime Minister is this. The Australian community is looking for some courage from you to show that you are different to Tony Abbott, that you're a Prime Minister who has a warm heart and is able to show the decency and compassion that's been so sadly lacking on this policy for just so long.
Just briefly on another matter, we've got a budget in a few days, and there are reports today that the government is going to adopt a lazy approach of offering $5 a week tax cuts to above average income earners to deal with bracket creep. offering tax cuts at a time when funding for schools and hospitals is under pressure isn't just lazy politics, it's bad economics, and the Greens won't have a bar of it. If you ask most people what would you rather in the budget, a tax cut at the most that'll give you $5 a week, or knowing that the hospital down the road from you will be well funded in case you or your family ever get sick, or knowing that there are well funded public schools to send your kids to, and most people will choose social spending. So the Greens will not be supporting tax cuts in the budget, will not be supporting personal income tax cuts, and will not be supporting company tax cuts. It is time that we secured the country's revenue base and made Australia a more equal society. So we're calling on Labor today to join the Greens in ruling out turning the budget and the election into a tax cuts arms race. If we turn the next few months into a promise as to who can give away the most in tax cuts to above average income earners and big business, society is going to suffer. Australia is going to become a less caring place and a less equal place, and we won't have the money to fund the schools and hospitals that we need and make the transition to the new economy. So it's simple economics. If you think you're going to be a winner when Scott Morrison offers you a $5 a week tax cut, ask yourself what other things is he going to put up the prices for to pay for it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.